girl, come to the bed. Come here, girl, come to the bed. And make it wild, wild, make it wild, 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 make it wild, 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 make it wild. Make it wild, 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 make it wild. Break it wild, 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 make it wild. Break it wild, make it wild, 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 make it wild. Make it wild, 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 make it wild. Make it wild, 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 make it wild.
What is going on, everyone? My goodness, I'm blasting you with a close-up of my face there. That is my fault. I changed my camera settings. How's everybody doing? Welcome aboard Soul Train. We've got an extra special episode tonight. One of my close friends in the real world as well as the professional world kind of sort of deal here. Mr. the man himself, Paul Outlaw. I'm worried about you getting that damn cigar lit. It looked like you're struggling over there. Boy, you look like you have been out there working today. Just a man's man coming on here to teach us a lesson about what it means to get
what it means to be a man. Done. That's what I want to. That's what I want to show you, Matt.
You got your blade sharpener in the background. You got you some new farm in the background. You got your little permagreen hat on. My man. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why are you here? What do you do? Just give us a little rundown here. Who are you? Why you do this? Where can people learn more about you?
Well, I treat turf here in North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina. I do a little mowing, but we're kind of waning away from that. But I got a little YouTube channel. I guess some folks have seen called Paul's Prime Cuts. But I mean, I just love getting out there and just working on turf and experimenting with some different things, man.
Well, I'm glad
I don't have much of a biography on myself.
Well, it's good enough. That's good enough for government work, at least. Shout out to J Pink for diagnosing all your technical issues that you ran into. I know. He started to give me a rundown on what's been going on between your phone and Zoom and all this stuff and how he got it to all come together. But hey, that's a testament, J Pink, right there. You deserve all the credit in the world for making this come together.
If he could get me on something this technological, he's doing good. I am super technologically challenged, that's for certain.
Well, and along with Paul, we also have our regular host on. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Green Doc himself. Ray, how are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you. I'm real good today.
Good. You look great, Ray. Have you been exercising?
No, I've just been, how shall I say, stuffing my face.
That's good. Only you, Ray, have the innate ability to stuff your face and continue to remain at your trim and proper shape that you do. Speaking of proper, we also have Mr. Ryan DeMay, the Sports Turf King, on. How are you, Mr. DeMay?
I'm doing well, Matt. It's raining here for the first time in a while. It's gonna warm up, so I got a feeling the grass, between the moisture and the heat and the mycelium and everything, it's going to be hotter, wetter, and whiter than the bed in the honeymoon suite here the next few days. So looking forward to that.
That's what I'm talking about. Have you turned your air conditioner on yet this year? I'm just curious. I don't know a whole lot about Canada, so I thought I'd ask.
Well, we just go outside. We go inside the igloo, and it's cool in there. I mean, yeah, we're good. And if we're not, we just drink a nice cold Stone.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's how you regulate your body temperature, a Keystone from time to time. By the way, so people offline don't know, Mr. DeMay received a celebratory gift from J Pink. J Pink is the greatest host of all time, by the way. I need to go ahead and get that out there. Whenever my family now, we'll go over to shut up, J Pink. I'm talking nice about you here. Whenever we go over to his place, he's the greatest host of all time. I mean, you can't ask for a better host than he is. So it is no surprise when DeMay comes home one day and has over 100 cans of Keystone sitting in his garage. You know what I mean? Because J Pink is the kind of guy that's going to have Instacart deliver you 15 cases of Keystone. J Pink, you serve great in life. You're a damn good host on here, and a technological producer. You got Paul's Prime. I mean, what are you doing wrangling on these damn rednecks?
The real question is, Ryan, how many of those cans are left?
Oh boy, haven't done
a 7.
A accurate count.
There's 7.
Accurate count. 7. No, there's more than 7. I would say because there is some support too from Miller Coors for my other partner in crime, Ryan Knorr, on our Turfcast podcast. They were also kind enough to support us product wise, right? So we don't schlep or push any turf products, but by golly, if there's something that can lubricate the vocal cords for this show or the Turfcast, and by golly, we're going to get into it. But I would say, without doing a full inventory, somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 cans or so left. So there's been some work done, but still a lot to do. So I'm sure, like I said,
Who
the
gave
weather,
you more cans? Who gave you more cans?
Miller Coors,
more
direct from the damn tap. They sent a 5,000 gallon tanker truck and filled up all those empty cans.
Yeah, there's an IBC tote of there's a 250 gallon tote of Keystone out there, room temp. You got to chill it. But no, who sent me more cans? Our producer, our Emmy nominated producer.
Someone
Don
clip that out and send it to the Miller Coors guy. Just let him know what's up.
I've got his email. I'll get it to him. All
right. Good.
Speaking of non-product sponsors here, it has not been officially all contract signed and all that, but it is. I think it's safe to go ahead and say that we are going to have a show sponsor, and that will be contributing a small piece of income for Ray and Ryan and Jay Pink for taking their time out of their day to waste as many hours as we end up wasting. But hopefully is at least some productive content for everybody watching at home. But that is for the time being, it is going to be Get Peak today. So always, if you're on Instagram and you want to learn about hormone optimization for men and to improve your health, then I highly recommend checking out Get Peak today.
I actually already did check them out. Matt.
Ray, I got to talk to you offline because you actually came up in conversation I was having with them the other day. So anyway, I just want to, Ray, we'll talk about that offline. But shout out to these guys. Like I said, it's not, nothing is just rocking and rolling yet, but you may see a little bit of a teaser. If you do see an Instagram ad, you might catch a segment of me on a video as we kind of tease this thing out. So shout out to those guys for even thinking that we are the type of crowd that they want to align with, because clearly they care about men's health if they feel like sponsoring something like this, right? There's something more at play, because I don't think they're going to expect to get rich off advertising on our channel. That is for sure. All of that to say,
it's a great connection, though. I mean, we got Paul here to teach us how to be men, right? Tonight,
yes.
He fired up the stogie.
Yes,
he is clearly violating the 3-button rule. He's really taking you to task tonight here, Matt, because right now I'm
you
getting
3 down?
more chest. I think he's 3 down at least.
Am I?
Count them.
1, 2, 3 buttons, 3 down.
All right,
yeah.
Here's 1, 2. I'm on number 3. Are we the same? I think we're the same. No, you are down 1 more than me. You son of a bitch.
This thing has wide.
Holy hell!
You son of a bitch, Paul.
I'm sorry, man.
We're gonna have to drink some more peanut butter whiskey on a balcony in Louisville, Kentucky.
Nothing that sounds good about that.
Speaking of, shout out to the guy who provided the
that flavored stuff's a little different.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that too. And of course, I was trying to be like all prim and proper, because this is the GIE, the last one we had. Paul came down, of course, and we were hanging out, and it was late at night, and I'm all stressed out to the gills because Carbon Earth had paid for us to be there and stuff, and I wanted to be on my A game, right? Because I've got to entertain all these people that come by the booth and all this stuff, and so I was telling Paul, I'm like, yeah, I'm not really going to drink tonight. I'm just going to hold it easy. And then, of course, the peanut butter whiskey comes out, and I'm like, well, shit, I guess I'll just have 1. All right, I'll just have 2. I had something else awful too, didn't I? Drink a Truly or something as well.
I think there was a bunch of Miller Lights there. I remember that because every time I came up for a breath, somebody put one in my hand. But I remember about that night at about 5 o'clock in the morning, Matt, you had to, the room Matt was in, I like had to go through it to get to my room or to get out of my room. And it's 5 o'clock in the morning. He's in there laid all across the bed with all this stuff, getting things ready to print out at Kinko's. Like, man, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I got to print these things out.
Lord. Lord.
I am no stranger to late night work. It's where I tend to operate best because, you know, when you've got young kids in the house, you get up early in the morning and start moving around and stuff. They hear you and they chase you through the house. And then they got 1,000,001 questions. They're always hungry. You know, can you make me some eggs or whatever? So a lot of times it's easier for me to get that, you know, 3-4 hours of solid work done without any interruption whatsoever in the middle of the night. Right. So, and of course there was just a lot going on at the time too, at the GIE then. So it was just a pure and total struggle. So it's totally normal to be doing stuff at 5 a.m. then. And that's probably why we're not in business anymore either, but you know,
I don't think that's the main reason.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it wasn't for effort.
That was,
we put a lot of effort into it, that's for sure. Speaking of manly men here, Paul, you're on the show. What the hell are we going to be talking about tonight? We're just going to cut up the whole night because I know we can do that too, and it doesn't matter to me. I'm not
kinda,
schedules.
I like the old format you used to have where all you talked about was weeds and weed control back in the day.
Yeah, we can talk about weeds and weed control. It's my favorite.
That.
Shout out to my wife for coming to hang out. She's actually cheersing you, Paul. Sami wanted to give you a cheers.
Thank you, Asami.
Oh.
Well, I tried to text Matt today and request some turn this mother out intro music, and I was hoping you could have like a some choreographing to go with it, you know, a dance or something, but he didn't respond, so I took that as a no.
You texted the wrong person.
That was a no. I started thinking about a content strike or something that was going to be going on there, and I was like, I'm not even. I'm not. And actually, I was kind of in a scramble because Borden was texting me 1,000,000 miles an hour then too, and so I was like, oh Lord have mercy, I gotta get after this. Yeah, all right. So we'll talk about weeds and weed control. Any particular place you want to start? I can. I guess I'll tell you at least the what I have done here recently, just for grins and giggles to kind of watch things. Number one is I seeded a small patch of Kentucky bluegrass in my front yard. I really don't have enough sunlight to grow Kentucky bluegrass, but I was like, hey, you know, spring in Knoxville, Tennessee, why not? Let's seed a little Kentucky bluegrass and see what happens. I did, and about 10 days after germination, what did I do? I went ahead and I lit it up with 3-way, right? And I can say without a doubt, a full rate of 3-way, 1.5 ounces per 1,000, did not damage any of the Kentucky bluegrass. It looked fine. I did not see any performance dip off. And now, granted, it has not been blazing hot here like it has been in the past, you know. But I was more so curious just how tolerant, because I see it with fescue too. You know, you come in, you know, fescue's up just a hair of a plant, and you run 3-way on it. You don't, you know, it's fine. It just chews it up, meets it up like no big problem. I repeated that on Kentucky bluegrass to see if it would be the same. It appeared to be the same. Then in the back, of course, I did one of those fun tank mixes, that, you know, inspired by Ray and carried out into my career, and I still do for fun now, which was a sulfentrazone, monument, and 3-way application across the back. Oh, and dithiapyr in that tank mix. And I did it as a one and done. And I had to say, you know, one of the big things I had spraying so late this year, I waited till the pond back there dried up, and spraying so late, I was eat up with buttonweed already. I mean, there was a significant amount of buttonweed, and that tank mix took care of every bit of that buttonweed, and I was real impressed with that.
I think you need
That's
some
awesome.
warm weather. You need some warm weather in order for those products to even work for you, because I've had some really junk things happen to me spraying when it wasn't warm enough. Like weeds wouldn't die. And I've had to come back and do things like light it up with pound and a half 2,4-D ester and the quarter pound dicamba with second application of sulfentrazone just to get things to go down and die. And I normally don't ever apply that much herbicide to a lawn at one time. I just don't do it.
I'll kind of stop you there and segue you into this here. Jeremy Benson has asked a couple times here over in the chat. I just happened to look at. Sorry, this isn't one of those where I typically pay attention to the chat a whole lot, but I'm looking over here, and he's wigged out about zoysia and his Bermuda grass in Northwest Alabama. And I'll tell you that this is a pretty simple fix here. It's not overly difficult to get rid of. I know Ray, your favorite tank mix on that is low rate of Pylex and ethofumicate. Is that it?
Actually, if I'm trying to remove zoysia from Bermuda, I love Tenacity and Sencor. Tenacity and Sencor, and you apply it at like 4 ounces Tenacity, 4 ounces Sencor per acre, and you keep on lighting it up at 21 to 30-day intervals. Just keep on hitting it. But if you have zoysia growing, what that tells me is you're kind of on the dry side and your NPK is a little bit on the low end. Zoysia should not overpower Bermuda unless you're starving or drying out Bermuda.
I'll give you one caveat to the transition zone is completely irrigation aside, it is very unpredictable in terms of which year which grass type is going to be more dominant. It's like some years will go by and you can run just a straight up aggressive Bermuda program on it, where you're out there and you're slamming it with nitrogen and doing everything you shouldn't be doing. And for whatever reason, the zoysia is tolerant of it. And it just is continuing to chooch on, and it is making some serious infiltration into your lawn. And then other years where you may be taking things easy, all of a sudden the Bermuda grass seems to just move in and take over things and keep everything fresh and square, and the Bermuda looks lovely overtaking the zoysia grass. And I think a lot of that has to do too, especially on years where the zoysia tends to be more disease prone. The Bermuda is there to fill that void very quickly, right? And so I think that's why, a lot of people would ask me, should I, which one should I go with? I got both growing in my yard. Which one should I go with? Or it can the Bermuda, is the Bermuda eventually going to take over the zoysia, or is the zoysia eventually going to take over the Bermuda? And in my experience, and again, my experience is not gospel by any stretch of means of the imagination, but what I have observed is it's very unpredictable, and it is a give and take relationship, where just some years the Bermuda does better, and other years the zoysia does better, and there's no real predictable rhyme or reason. I'm sure maybe if I kept intensive notes on individual properties, I may notice a trend, but I wasn't too keen on doing that. I would just tend to follow my eyes. Paul, do you see that a lot in North Carolina too? Kind of that give and take.
There is, the yards that we've been working on a long time to try to make one type of turf, they're one type of turf, but so many yards you go to for the first time I got some zoysia over here, some Bermuda over here, lots of centipede over there, and there's some fescue in the back. Jeez. But usually on those yards, depending on how much centipede or zoysia is in them, I will try to spray herbicides on them like they're centipede to keep from blowing this centipede up at one time, and fertilize them like they're Bermuda. And sometimes the centipede will just kind of pull back and decline because all the nitrogen and go away. And sometimes it'll just get like it's the Hulk, man. It'll just take off and run all over it. So, I mean, yeah, we see all kinds of mixed yards here.
Because that's interesting, Paul, because I had dealings with a mixed up centipede, zoysia, and St. Augustine lawn, and I deliberately smoked the zoysia and St. Augustine in that lawn and kept it 100% centipede. And the reason being is that it was a larger lawn where regular mowing was going to be difficult. So my preference was to keep the slower growing turf grass.
Bless your heart, Ray.
So,
man,
We have seen over the years here, Ray, that centipede is just not performing like it did at one time. If you've got a place where it wants to be and it has historically done well, it's hard to mess it up. I mean, probably the least you do to it, the better off you are. But somewhere where it's struggling a touch, it's going to keep declining every year. I don't care what you do to it. The more you do to it, the worse it gets.
That's right.
And the side farms here quit growing it.
Okay, because I know centipede as the grass that needs to have its environmental niche. And if centipede is where it's not happy, that's when I actually tell people scrap it and go with something like St. Augustine. Just scrap it. I mean, don't fight with it. Likewise, I tell people if their zoysia is not happy, lose it. Just lose it. Don't have it. Because the thing is that otherwise I have lawns that go through fungicides and nematicides like nobody's business because they're basically zoysia where it's not happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. Well, I think a lot of the problems here too with centipede is in the 70s, 80s, centipede was to everybody the greatest grass in the world, and that's what you had to have in your yard. And so back 20, 40, 30 years ago, they put this centipede in the yard, and trees have matured. People have done different stuff to the yard. The True Green here hammers centipede with 2,4-D. So they've killed a lot of centipede, but just it's not going to perform in the shade, and it's not going to perform when you dump the wrong things on it. So I think a lot of it is just people have murdered it over the years, and the environment has changed on it.
Okay. That makes total sense because to me, it's it's a matter of what you do or don't do to it, and shading is a factor. But even like here, zoysia was pushed as the magic grass because about 40 years ago, we started having a take-all patch epidemic that killed all of the tiff green here in Hawaii. So the fast answer was resod or sprig everything with zoysia. However, fast forward to now, I guess the nematodes found the zoysia, so that's another roller coaster dealing with that. So there's no such thing as a magic grass.
No,
there's no such thing.
Yeah, we've had there's getting more and more zoysia here. I think the people that are moving away from centipede are trying zoysia. Some have done the Raleigh variant of St. Augustine, and that one is not all that successful either. That's another one that if it's found a place where it's performed over the years, it's usually going to do okay if you just feed it a little bit and can keep the fungus out of it. But I've got one that's on a north facing slope, and it's
Mm-hmm.
that St. Augustine. It kills just huge patches of it in the winter, and I spend the whole summer growing it back in, and then by August it's looking good again, and then over the winter it dies again. I told them they're going to keep fighting that. I mean, it's just not really going to work there. And they're like, just keep doing it. I'm like, okay.
Keep doing it, yeah. Because I have ones where I tell them, whoever sold you this, $20,000 worth of zoysia sod needs to be brought back here to see what kind of damage and destruction they've wrought. And just so that you know, Paul, $20,000 worth of zoysia sod is about $5,000 here. I mean, it's 5,000 square feet, not including installation.
We need a boat, Matt. There's your new business venture.
I know.
We need a really fast boat, or a boat with dirt on it, where we could cut the sod right off the boat and come back here. And
only thing is that
you're the brains in this operation.
No, only thing is that sod, once it arrives or lands in Hawaii from the continental U.S., it immediately has to go into a 1-year quarantine. So, so much for the easy money, guys.
Yeah,
do they screen dope like that when it comes in illegally? We'll just have illegal sod. It doesn't matter.
Actually, there's not even that much dope here, and not that kind of dope. I mean, think small little white crystals in plastic baggies.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go.
Even the dope's
it's not that.
In Hawaii.
Yep. No, it's just not good for you. It's just not good for you. Forget it.
Somebody, I don't know, Paul. You come on here, and all of a sudden we start getting some crazy questions.
Shoot them at me. I don't see any kind of chat. I'm sitting here on my phone, so yeah.
I know. Here's one. I know we're supposed to be talking about weed controls, right? But this really grinds my gears right here. Ryan, Kentucky Bluegrass, hit it with iron 2 weeks ago, and hitting it with nitrogen at 0.75 pounds every 4 weeks. It looks dull. And I asked how much phosphorus and potassium have been applied, and we don't have that answer there. But chances are, if you're applying that much in without any P and K, that's only sustainable for a small amount of time, depending on what you have in the soil, right? So, because that has to come from somewhere, and if it's not there, then unfortunately you're going to start to lose performance out of your turf. Here's another one. Where did it go? Does using a non-ionic surfactant with dimension negate its pre-emergent characteristic?
No, it doesn't. In fact, a little bit of surfactant will help that Decidupear run into the soil off of the plant leaves, especially if it's a water-based non-ionic surfactant. That'll actually help to get the product into the soil, because what I do if I need to have my pre-emergent totally 100% work bulletproof, I actually tank mix my pre with a wetting agent and then hit the irrigation after I'm done spraying.
Yeah, there's a couple companies out there that have products specific for blending with pre-emergence in order to help how evenly it distributes across the soil layer. I can't remember exactly the name of the product, but I remember my rep at Helena used to always recommend that product for whatever it was. And I feel like actually, and now that I'm talking about it, Site One had one too that they said would increase the efficacy of the pre-emergent tube. Was it Hawkeye? Maybe I could be dreaming.
Hawkeye is
Actually-
the name of that product.
Hawkeyes, that's their version of Dynamic. That's
Oh,
what organic.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
that's
How much
their-
product
Vithia
you're probably
beer
thinking
do
of.
y'all use?
I use a lot of it
Are y'all
up here.
you a big Vithia beer fan?
Yeah, I think it works. I mean, there's nothing wrong with prodiamine as well, but yeah, you get different strokes for different folks. It works.
Actually, I have the unique distinction of having, Disciapir, prodiamine, and Spectacle all handy, and some Ronstar. But of course,
And
the
some
Ronstar
Ronstar,
is
that's right.
only but the Ronstar is only applied in flower beds. That's the only place I use the Ronstar.
I get to use it on
Oh,
sports.
and one
fields.
more. Oh, yeah. And there's one more that I started getting into for the flower beds, and that would be SureGuard.
I love.
I love Yeah, I love SureGuard. I mean, my hot mix in the flower beds is SureGuard plus Daiquat.
Wow.
Yeah, we SureGuard and glyphosate a lot of flower beds here, but yeah, it keeps them
Nope.
clean for a while.
I was going to
Yeah,
ask
for
you,
me, it-
Paul.
Mm.
Any that you put on Bermuda, do you feel like it delayed the transition to green up?
No, what delayed the transition to green up this year was the weather. If they were irrigated lawns, and I did because I got most of the Bermuda with the SureGuard and glyphosate or SureGuard and glufosinate. I'll alternate those year to year to knock down on glyphosate resistance. But I wouldn't say it delayed the green up, but our Bermuda green up this year is ridiculously delayed. Our warm season grass looks like Fido's rear end right now. It is awful. We had, if it's not irrigated, if it's irrigated, it's hanging in there. But hell, we had a frost in May, and then right after the frost, it turned. Hell, I don't think it's rained since that frost until now. So, I mean, we had severe drought. We had temperatures climbing up in the 90s for a couple of weeks. And then this past week, over the weekend, it dropped back down into where it was almost 40s at night. And we just have gotten rain here where I'm at today. And, I mean, we went weeks without rain. So the warm season grass looks awful right now.
Yeah, we're going through the same thing here. Finally, when I guess we got rain a week or so ago, and that was when everything started to kind of flush out here in terms of appearance on warm season turf. But heaven forbid, it catches a little bit of shade, especially if it's northern shade, right? It is just still has not fully come out of dormancy yet.
Right.
So, right there with you. I think we've been just a hair bit warmer than you have up to this point, because when that cold spell came through for us, we got, what was it, J-Pink? We got down into the 50s, I think. I think we were in the upper 50s, as cool as it got. But, it was cold. Like, it was legit cold.
Yeah, we last week, Friday, it was 90 degrees. Saturday, it was in the 50s. Craziest weather
Same.
ever.
Yeah.
That's
But,
insane.
Yeah.
It's been a weird
But
spring, man.
back to the SureGuard, it's a great pre-emergent to go with on your Bermuda grass because it's a non-root pruner. It seems to have pretty good control on a lot of things right now, and that wintertime application with the SureGuard and the non-selective, man, the Bermuda's clean right now. Some of it's still brown, but it's clean. But it's not brown because of the SureGuard. But hopefully after this week we'll be we'll be turning it all green. But I've been out and fertilized a lot of it just in anticipation of this rain, waiting for it to come out.
Yeah, and I've seen in the past where I've, poorly timed a glyphosate application, and, I'll have a yard that is 80% dormant when, a yard next door will be 80% out of dormancy. And the only difference was that ill-timed late high rate of glyphosate. You know what I mean? But if you would definitely pick up.
I mean, I've done that with lots of stuff. I sprayed atrazine on some dormant Bermuda before, and it might have been ready at 4th of July. But Manor, if you hit some hard at the wrong time with Manor when it's trying to transition, you'll set it way back. And Monument.
I kind of we'll switch over to cool season real quick. Hang on, Ray. Someone was asking about PGRs on fescue. Paul, what did you put any PGR on fescue this year? Did you use a new on any of your fescue?
I did. I really, that application is awesome. Actually, it should be mandatory for tall fescue in the spring. I'm going to continue to regulate my bent grass into the summer and feed it pretty heavy, but my fescue, once we get into fungus season, I don't regulate it anymore. But in the spring, for nothing else, it's worth the price of admission to regulate that stuff, just because it just puts the brakes on that crazy surge growth and the turf look. Because, in the spring, it's nothing to come back after a week and the stuff is 24 inches tall. And I mean, especially if it's rained a lot, and we're just not getting that with the new, and it just looks so much stouter and healthier and thicker because it's not using that energy to shoot that grass straight up. And it does a varying job on knocking Poa trivialis back. I can spray it on 1 yard and it'll turn the Poa trivialis brown and make it, but I mean, it still looks like crap because you got a big brown dead looking wad in the yard. But Poa annua, it'll take Poa. I mean, it doesn't kill it. I mean, it's coming back next year, all that kind of stuff. But it's the best tool I found to suppress that Poa annua where it's not visible in a fescue yard. It's amazing.
Does it stop the seed head formation on the Poa annua?
It's not labeled to suppress a seed head, Ray, but you don't see. I mean, where you don't see the flowering. If you time it out right, if you get it early enough before they start flowering, you'll never see them, basically. But if you wait till they're mature, it looks like you've hit them with a herbicide. They'll brown out on the top, and carcasses will be sitting up there, basically.
Right.
And they'll eventually go away.
So it's like it just keeps it so short that it's no longer sticking up in your face. That's basically what the annua is doing. All right.
Exactly. And
I was just going to say, in terms of the different PGRs, I can only really give advice on what I have seen from Tall Fescue and Trend Pack. I've never had a successful spring PGR program with T-Nex unless you are getting out there really early, and letting it come out of regulation really early as well too, prior to disease season.
Well, the Anu seems to have a little softer control, Matt. The Anu seems to have a little softer control, and it'll kind of gradually hold it back. The first week, the suppression is not as good as it is the second and third week. The second and third week, you'll come back and mow and just barely take anything off of it. The first week you come back, you'll take a fair amount off, but if you're collecting, whereas when you collected an unregulated yard, you take 20 hoppers off of it. You come back the first week after you sprayed it, and you might take 7 hoppers off of it. You'll come back the second week and you might take 2 hoppers off of it. You'll come back the third week and you can't even fill a hopper up. But it like with Tenaxapac, the minute it comes off of that regulation, it's like somebody unkinked a garden hose and all of a sudden you've got 24-inch tall grass again. But it's not like that with the new. It comes out very softly. So
Yeah,
it's just a win on fescue. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I've used it on Bermuda too. It's not. It won't regulate Bermuda as strong as it will fescue, but it will keep it down and keep it tight. It's fantastic on bent grass. Keeps bent grass tight.
Ryan, have you used much T-Nex on tall fescue?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you're saying about the spring, it's tough just because the fact that, even with your growing degree days, here in Ohio, now it might be a little bit different down there where you and Paul are, but, for a lawn care operator, it's almost impossible to stay in front of, like what Paul's talking about, stay in front of that rebound, right? Like you're just yo-yoing the grass all through the spring, and then disease season hits. And so either you're overregulated and you've stacked apps, right? And you've probably lost money on that property, at least starting out. And then you got to go back and chase the disease because it's under regulation because you stacked your apps, kept up with it. But now you're getting your ass kicked by disease, right? Or you do the opposite, right? You're like, well, I'm going to come back here in 4 weeks. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to come back here in 4 weeks and do it again. And you're just outside that rebound every time. You're in the rebound. You're riding that wave, juiced up, going into disease season, and you're still going to kick yourself. So it's really, really difficult to thread the needle. That product, it's been adopted in the lawn care market and even in sports fields, and it does a good job if you can stay there. And I think that's the thing with golf is like, you're there, you're on the property, right? If you think you're coming out of regulation and you're either calculating growing degree days, you're managing clipping volumes, whatever the case might be, it's real easy to just say, hey, guess what? Tomorrow we got to spray. It ain't like that in your world, right? Like you can't just be like, hey, I'm going to go do, this side of town today because I think I'm coming out of regulation over there on all those tail fescue yards. It just doesn't work that way. So I think that's the trap, right? And I agree with Paul that, if you look at the curve, and I'm trying to find them so I can send them over to J Pinky, throw them up on the screen. But, the amplitude, right? So the top of that curve is much higher with Primo, right? In terms of how much regulation we get, at the high rate, upwards of 70+%, whereas a new at the high rate, we might get like 50% regulation, right? But to his point, that curve goes up and it comes down a lot quicker with Primo versus a new. It's a much softer and more gradual, right? So you've got some time to ride that out. And I think in that case, like it's a much more forgiving product for homeowners, lawn care folks, Parks and Rec and the sports turf folks in K-12 schools I deal with that just don't have the ability to say, hey, we're going to go spray tomorrow. Like it's just, you don't live in that world of the here and now, right? You've got to schedule that out and have a little bit of forgiveness built into that schedule. And notwithstanding the fact that just what you guys talked about, this spring has been a real shit kicker, in terms of weather. I mean, we've been up, we've been down, we've had, here we had 90+ degree temperatures for a long stretch in April. We had frost on Mother's Day. It's been all over the map. So I think anybody's going to look like a fool this spring in terms of, what's the old Mike Tyson quote? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. This, it hasn't been a punch in the mouth, but it's just been like, okay, I'm expecting, I'm going to apply this product at this time and I'm going to get this result because the weather should be, X, Y, and Z. Hasn't come to pass, right? So I think that is, if you're a lawn care operator now, anywhere from the Mid-South all the way clear up here to the Midwest, it's all about, okay, I know what I was planning on doing and I know what I plan for the turf to be like right now, but I really do need to assess, especially properties that you have prior history on, is looking at, okay, my worst ones, like where am I really at right now on my worst properties? What's the worst that can happen? And let's go ahead and reforecast and recalibrate on what we're going to do for the next 3 months because it's going to be critical, right? The turf is not where you think it should be right now in most cases. And so I think that's the real take home for me right now. That's what I'm doing right now with all my clients is like, we should be here, right? Are we really here? Are we further ahead? Are we further behind? And what do we need to adjust, right? Because Tyson stand across from us, like I said, it's about to get hot, wet, it's going to get deep here pretty quick, and if we're not prepared, it could get ugly pretty quick. So yeah, so on tall fescue, back to the question, I have seen really good luck with it if you can stay up with it, right? That's the key thing, is if you can stay on that that GDD and not stack those apps and get too close together, or not spread them too far apart. And like I said, you're just yo-yoing the turf back and forth between regulation and rebound, and that's not a good way to try and grow grass, especially in the spring leading into a hot summer.
Do
Yeah,
you
that
feel
is,
like you get? How do you feel about bronzing on tall fescue with trim pack?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, there's things, the people that will use, ferrous ammonium sulfate, irons, things like that, in terms of trying to mask that to a certain extent. You can mask it. I mean, honestly, some of the things we've done on certain athletic fields here for spring play, like we're really trying to control mowing and keep that playability up, and we're afraid of any of that bronzing. We won't even use anything like iron to try and trick the grass. We'll just use paint. I mean, we'll go ahead and cut some paint in there, try and give us some good color, and maintain that and not really worry about it, because one, it doesn't affect us physiologically in the plant. Like, we don't have any negative effects from that, notwithstanding the fact that we also get that darkened color. So we're drawing down some more heat, and we usually see some improved effects, right, from that part of it. So it doesn't bother me. I mean, the thing that scares me more, and I've seen some bad stuff happen, and I know you played around with it last year, is Paclo. If you bronze some stuff with Paclo, like if you get a little bit of frost or even some cold temps with Paclo, and your bronzed might turn to straw real quick. Like, you ain't going to kill it, but it's going to be really, really, really unhappy for a long time. And if any of y'all have ever worked at the golf courses on cool season and ever had the distinct pleasure to use Embark, the fluidide, that's some fun stuff to play with. You can't even buy that stuff anymore, but that was for POA seed head suppression. And I'm not kidding you. You could spray greens, you'd have 0 seed heads. I mean, like almost nothing. But
however,
you could go mow greens. However, you could go mow greens for 30 to 40 days in the spring, and you could not change your baskets on your greens mower for those 30 or 40 days. You could just let it ride. That you'd have dust, in the bottom of the buckets. That'd be it. There would be no growth whatsoever, like none. So, yeah,
Yep.
I mean, growth regulators in the spring are an interesting proposition. I love Paul's approach. I think it's a fantastic way, especially in his area, right, where the one thing he mentioned there that is undersold on this is the pre-stress conditioning, right? So this was the selling point years and years ago to golf course supers with Trinexin Pack, particularly on bent grass, and really it translates over to any cool season grass across the board, is the fact that in spring, the energy consumption that you're going through. So, right, so we look at that growth curve of roots, right? We've got big roots that are coming into spring, right? And we're in a root development period. We're going to chew through all that in the summertime, right? So anything that we can do to not force growth with excess nitrogen, to not consume extra carbohydrates, right, in the springtime, that's going to preserve roots. And really, that's all you're living by and living on in the summertime, right? It's just roots. The top growth and whatever you have up on top is a direct reflection of how well you did the previous fall and cool season going in through the winter into the following spring, right? That's a direct reflection. Summer is just showtime. That's what we always say. Growing season starts on Labor Day for cool season grass, and showtime is summertime, June, July, and August. And you'll see how good you did in those preceding 6 to 8 months. And so, like I said, I love his approach where he's trying to do everything he can, Paul, and I think that's what it's after. Like you said, suppressing growth so you're not going through that big surge, right? And that's a pain in the butt if you're a mowing contractor, but notwithstanding
right, because I mean, all that energy is burning, shooting that huge top growth out, is putting it down in the roots. So,
exactly,
it's just a win-win application. It's got so many pluses to it, and then the POA control is just that's what's so sexy to most people, but that's just the extra to me. I'm more interested in how it's preparing me for that. One is keeping me from mauling that grass with a horrible mow if I'm the one mowing it, or if other guys are mowing. And the other mowing companies that mow the ones I tend, I don't even want to get into all that. Some of them are great, and some of them, need to go see if they can get a job at Greeter or Walmart or something. But there's nothing bad about that a new application on fescue in the spring for at least 2 months worth of it, just to get you through that horrible surge growth time, and then have it where when you're going, you want it. I won't mind to fall. It'll last 3 to 4 weeks, and I want to time that last application where it's falling off of that 4th week on May 15th.
Yeah, and here it's probably about 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, and you're dead on. That's about the timing. And same thing, I'll say this real quick too, Ray, before you jump in here, is Kentucky bluegrass, same deal. You know, in the added energy suck that you have there is seed head, right? So when our Kentucky bluegrass starts to seed, that is a huge suck of energy, and that's also a good kind of pinpoint time to go ahead, and if you're trying to time up that spring nitrogen application, and again, it's different in lawn care, but if it were me, I'd be loading all that stuff up in the fall, right? And I'm going to be liquid only, small rates early in the spring, just to kind of bump things along. But first granular application is not going down until I begin to see seed heads, right? And if I'm under a good growth regulation program, then I know that one, I'll come out on rebound, and the grass is going to want to try and grow a little bit, but if there's no fertilizer there, I'm going to be screwed. So it's a good time to kind of balance out your NAPs, right? To target that rebound and get yourself into summer, so you're not juiced up, but you're healthy, and you have a good root system. And so it's a delicate balance, and especially in a year like this, you could look like an asshole real easy. I'm sure I'll have several places that I'll look like an asshole. There's no doubt, where you missed it, by a week or a few days, and it's that slim sometimes if you're trying to manage on the edge. But I don't know, Ray, what do you think? I mean, it's cool season's a different world, but you know a lot about it. What do you think about what we're talking about?
Well, I totally agree with the idea and the practice of diverting energy back into the roots, because I do the same thing, because I don't necessarily fight temperatures so much as I fight shade. And with PGR, what happens when you try to grow a warm season grass and it's not getting enough sun, the PGR just helps me tremendously, because the grass stops stretching out, trying to get sun that it's not going to get, and it's not burning up energy, making that tall, lanky top growth. So what I do with the lawns that are, shaded is I use a new on them, and then I also add 2 different PGRs to the Anew to basically maintain them on the equivalent of at least 400 GDD worth of regulation. And in my area, 400 GDD is like 30 days.
400, man. Yeah, you can ride that out a little bit longer out there. Whose camera's out?
Yeah.
Matthew.
Yeah. Matt, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Matthew.
400.
It saw that. It violated you for that third button rule.
Yep. But
You're
400
you're about 2
GDD
buttons away from.
Yeah.
I was going to say you're 2 buttons away from that
everyone.
happy trail, dog.
I'm back. I have
there he is.
Is left on this battery.
See, I was
here,
the
so
one that
we'll
was
see.
supposed to
I can't
fall
find
out
my
due to
battery.
technical difficulties.
It's all right.
But,
I'll hang down here in the darkness. I don't mind.
Yeah, but what I do is I use different, ratios of the 3 PGRs, because in warm season grass, Anew kicks in quickly, but it also comes out of regulation really fast. So what I do is, depending on the time of the year, I add more Cutlass if I need it to stretch out longer, or I actually switch to more Trinexapac during the winter months, because I know that Trinexapac will last long enough for me from November until April. So what I'm doing is I'm basically taking advantage of how the cooler temperatures are already slowing down the grass, but at the same time, I still need the regulation to keep the grass from overgrowing and stretching. So I'm playing kind of a balancing act too. Whereas I want to back off on the cutlass in the winter because it's not hard to overregulate with cutlass. Because cutlass is just one step under Paclo as far as how severely it'll regulate something.
Right, it's an early GA, and so that's the one thing too. I think for homeowners and even lawn care operators, those two are a little undersold now. When I say that, meaning a new and Fupimidol or Cutlass, right? Because they're so forgiving in terms of the amplitude and the length of their response and their growth regulation properties, right? That being said, you can get yourself into problems. So, like, in Paul's case, right? If you don't know how much Poa annua is in that yard, you could have a problem. And we've seen this with golf course superintendents, especially. We've seen this with sports field managers, where you go in there and you think, what, yeah, maybe 10%, this is what I see. But down in that canopy
with
lurking
cutlass
is another 15, 20%. And you go out there and you spray that shit, and it is like, oh boy. If you're on a sports field, it's hey, we got any ryegrass back there? Let's go ahead and pre-germ that and get that out there like now.
No, yeah, because true or false, Ryan, Cutlass's main selling point is to smoke Poa on a golf green.
On a golf green, it's very strong as a Poa suppressant, right? And the whole point, just like another early GA or a class two PGR,
class 2A, yes.
Yep, is the same as Paclo, right? Is that you get that suppressant factor, and it's just like Paul said, like the whole point, and this is why it's tough in fescue lawns, and this is probably, Paul, why you see this stuff just come back like the prize fighter, going back to the Mike Tyson thing. You 8 count that guy, he's going to get up and just wail on your ass, right? Like he ain't going to care. And that's what Poa is. But with creeping grasses, right? So if we've got, Kentucky bluegrass with rhizomes, if we've got bentgrass with stolons, or some other grass that can compete, the whole idea is uses the heat of the summer with those products, right? So that you ding them up so hard that they have zero ability to compete, and then you push your desirable grasses. So I think there's some upside and some downside with those. Now, the other downside too, from a lawn care operator homeowner's perspective, is cost. Like, they're not cheap. Paclo's cheap, but man, that's one that I would be very, very restrained with if I was thinking about this as a homeowner or even a lawn care operator, because there's another host of issues with that and the way that it attacks Poa annua. Right, so Poa is in the same family as Poa pratensis, Kentucky bluegrass, and I've seen this firsthand. I've smoked some Kentucky bluegrass, right, with Trimit or paclobutrazol, right. So I can remember one of the last golf course I worked on. We had brand new golf course, T-tops were bent grass, and that's what we were spraying. That was our target, but we had sodded perimeters, like they had sodded 2 strips of sod right around the T-tops just for erosion control and stuff like that, seeded outside of that with some different cultivars. We would go out and spray that stuff, and over the summertime, again, it's more of those stacked applications, right? It's a cumulative effect, and that's what you see on the Poa too in terms of discouraging it. But even on your desirable grasses, our sod, we had picture frames of dead grass right around our tees, right? Where those particular cultivars of Kentucky bluegrass were not tolerant of paclobutrazol. Outside of that, on the the seeded areas with different cultivars, totally fine. And so you see this too, and this is a whole nother topic, but not a whole nother topic, but it gets really, really specific when you get into different cultivars, and if you know what you have and what you're working with versus if you roll up on a lawn, you don't necessarily know what's there or what you're dealing with. In either situation, you get yourself into trouble because certain cultivars and biotypes and things like that react differently to these chemicals, and I don't want to say it's a crapshoot, but you got to be careful and don't put yourself in a bad situation. So again, slice that all down, boil it all down, whatever you want to say. Is a new is a great starting point. It really is. It's forgiving.
Safe. Yeah.
It's kind of like if you're checking, if you're doing the little, golf scorecard, you're under par. You're in a good spot when you do all the math there and figure out, you know what, this is probably a good place to start. Nothing wrong with your next impact. Nothing wrong with Primo, right? But if I was going to start something, I would probably start with a new and graduate to something else and go from there.
There's a generic version of a new available now too. I'm not sure if it has a turf label though, but I had seen some.
I don't think it's got a turf label.
I'm not sure. It might. I mean, it's a residential label. It might be a golf product, but there is a no name brand version of it out there now.
Somebody said
Paul's
it was $550 a bag. I'm looking on Winfield's website right now, and it's $125. So
a new
it's only
1.5 pound bags are about $115, something like that.
Yeah,
$117, somewhere in that range. And this other
what
thing
rate are you using, Paul?
A pound.
Oh, you're using the pound. Yeah.
Well, on fescue, a pound an acre, and on bent grass, a little less. And on bent grass in the summer, even a slightly lower rate.
So 90-ish an acre. That's not bad.
Yeah,
that's
like
pretty.
That. But it's less than that. It's less than that. And the generic is not that much cheaper. I think it's $70-some a pound. And the new is going to be up in the 80s a pound, I think, if I'm thinking right. So it's not that big of a difference in price.
Mm-hmm.
But what you get out of it, yeah. What you get out of it too, Paul?
It's worth $100 an acre all day long to put that out for certain. For certain, especially if you're going to mow that stuff.
Yeah, because I tell my customers the difference between me using a PGR on their turf and not using a PGR on their turf is literally, if I don't do a PGR on your lawn, you folks had better give me a place to park, and you better open up the other half of your house so I can live there and mow your lawn every day before I go out to see the rest of my customers.
Anybody
because
take you up on
that's
that?
how much they tell me. Go ahead and put on whatever PGR I need to control their grass so that it doesn't require as much mowing. Nobody's willing to take me up.
You need to start offering that program in the single hot ladies neighborhoods. That's what I would be doing. Residential
unfortunately,
lawn care.
Yes,
I'll live here and take care of your lawn.
Yeah. Only thing is, Ryan, is the single women here, as a rule, do not live on, quarter acre or half acre properties. They're all in condos in downtown Honolulu or Waikiki.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
man can dream.
So, man can
busted.
dream. Yeah, because usually the hot women also have the middle-aged to elderly husband with them, and I don't want to make the 6 o'clock news. Not for that. Not for that.
Those dudes don't know how strong your back is.
Something that a lot of people are probably gearing up to experience is fungicide applications. I know here now that we're finally starting to get the humidity up and a little moisture and all. I don't feel like we had very much pressure as usual in May. We had some hot weather, but the air was super dry, and I think you get more problems on the brown patch front when you have that humidity in the air versus just a rain. I don't really see huge problems after just a rain event and then drying out. It's more when you have that prolonged humidity here, and I feel like that's coming this time anyway. But what are you guys' thoughts on some of your fungicide strategies for tall fescue?
Okay. I'll let Ryan
What's your
go
budget?
first.
How much money do you want to spend first? 'Cause
Exactly. Well,
we
that's
can
just
we
it.
can go from
You can't go
$800 an
after
acre to
everything preventatively. I mean, I can't put something out. I can't be preventatively treating Pythium, preventatively treating brown patch, preventatively treating gray leaf spot. Because, I mean, gray leaf spot was damn awful here last year. It wiped out way more grass than brown patch. And I don't know that I actually seen a lot of Pythium. I think we saw some stuff that we might have thought was Pythium that was gray leaf spot. But gray leaf spot was terrible. And I think I've got a plan for that laid out this year. But, I mean, I can't go preventively spraying for, Pythium, brown patch, and gray leaf spot because it's all going to take a little something different. And,
So
I mean, the
that's what
budget
I'd
is...
say. So
What's that?
here's what you got to decide, bro. What's the baddest MFR you're going to deal with, right? What do you not want to have to explain to a customer? Is it the gray leaf spot damage, the Pythium damage, or the brown patch damage? That's number one, because you're going to have to lay out for somebody. Not, it's all about expectation setting, and I get it. Like, people want it perfect, and they don't want to pay a dime, right, extra. But if you the professional down there, what is your biggest issue, worry, concern, right, between those three, right?
Right. Well, I feel like brown patch is going to be around, but I feel like our newer cultivars we're selecting and are more brown patch resistant than ever. But I'm still going to have to treat for that because the pressure is off the rails here. So my strategy this year is I'm probably, in May I went out with a straight DMI at full rate. This month I'm going to combine DMI and strobilurin. And next month I'm either going to combine DMI, strobilurin, and something like a Clary's to maybe get in because I usually don't see the gray leaf spot till later in the summer. So I mean that's kind of how I'm going to try to roll with that.
Yeah,
And
gray
then
leaf spot
maybe-
is kind of creeping up in the September to October timeframe, isn't it? I was reading the NC State turf file on it, and I think that was when y'all were having the big issue. It was really.
We started seeing the damage we started seeing some grass start to show signs in late July, and really serious damage on toward the end of August, first part of September, which was kind of a blessing because it was getting sort of time to reseed. We didn't reseed them until October this year, like we started a little toward the second week of October maybe and finished up the first week of November, something like that. But and had a back to weather, had a terrible seeding season. The reseeds looked terrible. All winter they looked terrible. And it rained all winter, it was cool all winter, and they looked awful. And I came through with the first fertility round for preparing for spring, and they all just took off. Like, all of them were 10s. They looked amazing. And now they're drying up.
Yeah. Paul, what I don't see in your program is what I know as the SDHI fungicides. Because if you're because if your gray leaf spot is anything like the gray leaf spot that I see on what people get when they sod St. Augustine between December and April here in Hawaii, because you know what happens to St. Augustine that gets sodded at that time of the year? The sod rots down to the and the sod gets rotten down to the ground with gray leaf spot. The gray leaf spot just comes in and kills it. So what I do in that case is, even preventatively, I'll apply a gallon of something called Exteris Stress Guard per acre to something like that, and that will even curatively control gray leaf spot. And that is not a cost prohibitive application because a gallon of Exteris is only about $100 per acre. That's
So,
not a
and I'll-
real
in that class, I'll
horrible
just kind
cost.
of highlight some of the other names you'll hear there: Zemplar, Lexicon,
Callista.
ProStar, Callista, Kabuto. All of those are the SDHI fungicides.
SDHIs. So yeah, I'd look at Paul Valista for sure. It's if Exteris is one that you're combining a Strobe with an SDHI. It's also got the Stress Guard pigment thing in there, so like you get a little feel good of getting some green color out there with it, right? It's pretty good. So at the rate Ray's mentioning, yeah, I'm just checking the math here real quick on $100. Yeah, so you're $115 an acre at the low rate, $230 at the high rate. So a fantastic product just because you're getting kind of the best of both worlds there with an SDHI and a Strobe in one package, right? So then
So I could just run that alone and don't have to run anything side by side.
You don't have to run
that
yep.
in these later summer applications.
So then keep your hold back the 336, right? Hold back the thiophenate because you want that one in the barn ready to go for your gray leaf spot in case you need it, right? It's not going to be super great on brown patch as it is, either as a preventative or a knockdown to be okay. But the other thing, Valista is fairly, of the SDHI, is fairly inexpensive and has a little bit better activity here on your brown patch. So just something to consider there of incorporating that class of chemistry in there. The other thing too, and we see it up here all the time, and I'm sure it's an issue. I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know in the Carolinas on tall fescue, but here on golf courses and things like that, thiophenate methyl resistance is a big deal. Like there are people that get hammered every year and they're scratching their head and saying, man, I went out there, for, especially on golf courses, it's basal rot and anthracnose on Poa annua greens, right? And they're like, oh man, I went out there, I did the same program that, was recommended, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll go and they'll put those isolates. So they'll take that at the disease lab, right? You send it to NC State, Rutgers, something like that. They'll isolate it out and they'll put yours against an untreated check, right? And they'll put the thiophenate in there with it. And you'll see the stuff that is on your thiophenate resistant turf just blow up, right? It'll blow up with mycelium and fruiting structures of that fungus, whereas the other stuff won't, that's not resistant to it. So it is a big deal. And I know that with it being a crutch and a go-to for a lot of folks down there, it could be that even if it's a lawn that you haven't treated before, you roll up on there and somebody has just went hog wild with it for years and years and years, it definitely could be an issue. And so I always caution people of, if you've got a lawn that's been a problem like that, particularly with, whether it be gray leaf spot or something like that,
any kind of disease, yeah,
it's worth sending over there to Kearns and the boys over there at NC State and just saying, hey, can you check this, right? Like it's worth the, a couple $100 that's going to cost you in terms of product, aggravation, planning, all those things, right? That you can then say, you know what? I'm not going to spray that stuff there because it ain't going to do anything. So just another like management strategy kind of thing of if you've got ones that you're banging your head against the wall, it's like, well, maybe I'll check this out and just verify if this is an issue or not.
Right.
Well,
that is good. Good stuff.
Well, what I do.
What about the
what I also
phosphites?
Okay. Paul, you got a question about phosphites? I'll talk to you about phosphites in a second. Ray, you go ahead, and then I'll jump in on phosphites. It just moved a little bit. I just felt it. I felt it.
Yeah, because what my general policy is that whatever is popular with the lawn guys, I don't use it. and that applies to both insecticides and fungicides. I don't use it because chances are they're misusing or misapplying that product. And so when I come across that same problem in the neighborhood, chances are, even if I were to properly apply that product, I'm going to be faced with a pest or a pathogen that is resistant. So that's why, for example, I love Exteris because nobody uses it outside of the golf course. That's why I love things like Lexicon. Nobody uses it outside of the golf course. And
because it's
yeah,
expensive as
right.
hell. Yeah.
Oh,
Now, okay, now, Paul, what if I told you? Now, listen, I use it because hey, listen, it's like a good
It
divorce
works.
lawyer. It's expensive because the shit works, right? But if I had to have you ask a customer to do a $500 an acre application, what do you think the buy-in would be? What would your conversion rate be on something like that?
I mean, I've got some that might spring for what I would have to charge for something that cost me $500 an acre, but not many. Yeah, but that's the other problem here. Most of our yards are big. I mean, I don't know how large a properties Ray is dealing with in Hawaii, but I mean, it's nothing for me to have a 2-acre yard, a 3-acre yard, a 5-acre yard, and I mean, that's a big hit for somebody to go in there and charge them to do that.
However,
yeah,
Paul,
when you've got $2,500 in just material costs alone, and
Right,
billing that
yeah,
to a
it ain't
customer like,
happening.
hey, I got
can
you
sod
for
it.
30 days. It's going to cost $7,500, but I got you for 30
We can
days.
kill it, and I can go sod it.
Yeah.
but
They,
on the other
Go ahead.
hand, replacement cost, okay? I always look in terms of what is it actually going to cost if this lawn, shits the bed and you got to replace it. I mean, and who is going to pay for that replacement? Because in my case, did I tell you how much sod costs, Paul? Guess how much?
You did. It's less
$4
than $180 for 400 square feet here. So, and that's just if you're just buying one pallet. If you go into bulk, I'm pretty sure on a big yard I could get it down to $150 a pallet on certain varieties.
Let's just say this, Ray. Scarface could come in and play Clear the Mirror in Hawaii cheaper than he could sod his freaking yard. I mean, that's just
exactly. But then, even if sod were dirt cheap, consider the disruption to your customer's life because, hey, now it's dirt until the grass gets replanted, right? Now it's patchy, ugly dirt. And even if, like, for example, somebody had Bermuda seed, it's patchy, ugly dirt until it gets fixed. So I keep that in mind because it's not only the sod. How does that sod get off the pallet, get on the ground, be laid out so that it is mowable when you're done laying it out? Because that's the other thing too. It's like I consider all costs associated with death from disease or insects. All costs are factored in, all of them. Because, by the way, you know that $4 a square foot? For it to be installed and top dressed and leveled so that it's mobile after installation, that $4 a square foot sod just turned into $8 a square foot. In my case.
Oh.
I was just thinking I would pay good money to just be a fly on the wall and listen to Ray's conversations with his customers and how they react. And
no, they actually
dropping all this on them.
No, because Paul, I have people that have literally told me, "Hey, I spent $50,000 on sod. I don't want it to die."
I,
They bring it
I
up
can
with,
see definitely where you're coming from at those prices.
you know, they bring it up. In other words, what they're telling me is, man, you better not F it up.
Well,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
what it
the
comes down to,
stakes
right?
go
It's
way
like,
up when you're dealing with that kind of price on the materials. That's for sure.
Or even for these
I
people
love
with
those ones.
Yeah, and or even with these people with smaller properties, they still tell me that, okay, this is only $10,000 worth of sod in front of you, but I had a hard time coming up with that money. Don't F it up.
Sure.
You know?
That's the truth. Is that's how you sell it too. Is like, this is insurance, right? Like, this is insurance, especially, you know, when I'm looking at this or I'm talking to clients, and it's, you know, we're 5 figures, 6 figures. This is everything that can go right, but here's everything that can go wrong, and here are the ways, you know, X, Y, and Z that we mitigate that. Here's all the costs associated with that. You accept your own risk tolerance, right? As the client, I'm going to lay it all out for you of what can happen, right, relative to what you're willing to spend. And just like Ray, I don't sugarcoat anything. I'm here to tell you the truth, right? And I think, you know, I think that's where, whether they don't know or they're not willing to tell the truth, I've seen so many, I mean, any walk of turf, right? Sports turf managers, golf course superintendents, lawn care operators get themselves into trouble because they can't, won't, or don't tell the truth, right? And they don't communicate forward to say, like, hey, there's some bad stuff that might happen here, and here's how we're going to manage around that, and here is what it's going to cost to do that, right? And so, to Ray's point, you know, we always talk about ROI, right? Return on investment, right? That's a really, really big thing. I always talk to my clients about COI, right? So the cost of inaction, right? If you don't do this, right? If we don't make this, to Matt's point, $7,500 treatment, and the whole yard, you know, shits the bed, where are we at, right? It's not just money at this point, it's time, right? Are we going to be too late in the season to, you know, resprig or
Fix
sod your
this?
yard? Is it going to be right? I mean, it's not just a function of money all the time. So, and I get it, like, you know, Joe Sixpack who lives on Main Street might not care, and that's all good. Like, I get it, but it's always that risk profile of what somebody's want to accept. One thing I wanted to show real quick, J Pink, cue it up here. This is a really interesting photo. So this is Lexicon. This is the one that Matt was talking about, Ray was talking about. So the big thing that they discovered here with this product, they first discovered this in potted annuals and different ornamental plants, right? So this is a mix of a strobularin and an SDHI. And what it does is what you're looking at here. So scroll up, J Pink, so you can see both, like the top and the bottom of the photo. So up on the top, these are sprigs, and these are about, I think, of like 7-8 weeks old, being mowed on a green. This is in Pinehurst, North Carolina. And on top, these sprigs were pre-treated before they were harvested with Lexicon. The bottom were not, right? So there's some type of, and they still haven't figured out exactly what it is, particularly in turf. Like, they've really worked hard on it in the potting plants and things like that. But there is this synergistic effect that you see if you pre-treat those sprigs with this stuff, or even come back 1 week after. So if we're getting ready to do a sprig project up here, and we're going to do this Lexicon treatment 1 week after sprigging, and do a couple knockout plots, just, you know, untreated checks, just to see if there's a difference there. But I'm very interested to see this in action, right? I've got a lot of feedback from different folks all over the Southeast and Mid-South that this is the real deal. Like, this is legit, that you do gain an advantage by making this $500 an acre app, right? And so for me, on a football field that's, you know, 2 acres, hey, what's $1,000 between friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, and the same thing, it's always just, it's laying it out, hey, $1,000 insurance policy that we might gain, you know, 3, 4, 5 days, 10 days of better growing conditions. Drop in the bucket, let's do it, right? Different stakes, different risk profiles, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you think about it from a sports turf perspective too. You increase your speed of establishment by 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Well, how many additional games do you get to have on that field over that time period? How much additional revenue generated over that time period do you get to capitalize on? Right, where
Absolutely.
it's a little bit different in the lawn care world, where you fight that battle of, okay, we're going to get it established 2 or 3 weeks faster. What's your ROI on that? Not
I
a
don't know.
motherfucking thing, So, yeah,
That's why you got 3 different people on the show.
exactly. Perspectives, right? Perspectives.
Right.
Perspective. Yeah, we'll give you a lot of perspective.
No, we most certainly will. Wait till the after show because we'll get even more perspective there. All right, so you wanted to talk about phosphites.
Yeah.
Absolutely great tool. There's in my mind, especially in your neck of the woods, there's zero reason to not have them in the tank every single time through the summertime. Now, I'll let Matt maybe dive in. First, I'll just talk, for the folks listening at home, it is a physical impediment, right? So there are enzymes inside the plant and inside the pathogen epithium, right, that will bind together and then create that infection center, and then it spreads from there. What the phosphite does is physically block the enzyme on the plant side so that the infection, the pathogen can't get in there. So, there's different strokes for different folks in terms of the quality and the build on these products. Maybe, Matt, you can talk a little bit about that in terms of what's out there in the marketplace of different ones being sold right now.
No, I'm not going to get into too much specifics because then you're really getting into the weeds of chemistry, right? And the stability of the product over a period of time, right? Because there's a certain amount of degradation that occurs with the product after the date of manufacture, right? So that's kind of one piece of it you have to keep in the background. Then also too, how it plays with other components if you are going to use it in a tank mix as well, right? Because I'll tell you, phosphites are very reactive, right? So we're talking about something that the two raw materials you're working with are potassium hydroxide and phosphorus acid. You're reacting those two, right? And that's what generates a potassium phosphite. And somebody just said right here, does phosphite provide P and K? No, it only provides K. The phosphorus in phosphites is not plain available, and the length of time it would take for that phosphorus to become a usable form is just it is not an applicable way to apply phosphorus. In terms of applying potassium, yes, it can, but typically at the rates you would have to apply to use it as a potassium supplement, you would probably salt out the turf first before you were able to get some significant levels of K down. So now, and yeah, so Ray, I'll let you, I know you have a hard on for things that are stabilized with aluminum rather than a potassium. So I'll let you kind of dive into that, and then I'll kind of talk about my experience with it on the other end.
Right. Well, when I'm dealing with that high value turf, my preference is to tank mix Phosphetal L, also known as Alliette or Signature, with something like Exteris, because Phosphetal L is the phosphite that has been proven as a Pythium and Phytophthora control in both agriculture and turf. It's been proven, and it's actually a EPA registered fungicide. It's not sold as, like with a potassium phosphite, is often sold as a biostimulant or potassium fertilizer, but Alliette or Signature is definitely sold as a fungicide, and when it is used at the proper rates, you can literally get up to 30 days of disease control or disease prevention out of an application of, say, Signature or Aliette. And it also is very synergistic with your other established fungicide applications. Like a common one in Gulf is Daconil plus Signature, or else Mancozeb plus Signature.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little overspray from your shrubs on that one, and boy, that is curative action.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, you're
that is one hell of a.
lithium.
Yeah, I mean that is one hell. I mean, pretty much everything you do a little Daconil, Mancozeb, and phosphite on.
Daconil.
Boy,
Daconil.
Yeah.
Well, even like Daconil and Aliette. Daconil and Aliette would be my ideal non-systemic application where, say I need to break disease resistance in turf, I'd go on a 14-day application program with Aliette and Daconil. And I'd keep it up until that particular pathogen got eradicated.
I don't want to put ideas in anybody's head out there, so please, this is just me telling a story. But I worked in a fairly high pressure disease environment, some older bent grasses that were awful on fairways. And all we sprayed, I'm not kidding you, all we sprayed were phosphites in low areas when it got hot, and off-label low, right? So this is the old dry flowable version of chlorothalonil. So low rate on that was like 5 pounds of the acre. Spraying at 3 pounds of the acre every 7 days. Clean. Nothing out on these fairways when we started doing that. And it was a pain in the butt because you had to spray 38 acres of fairways every 7 days, or 5 days or whatever it was, but nothing out there. So yeah, the old overspray from the rose bushes sometimes ain't a bad deal, is what I'm saying. What's the oops?
Oops. Yeah. It's a
Oops.
You know, that JD9 gun takes on a life of its own sometimes.
It was all rinsate, sir. All rinsate. Yep. Absolutely. Diluted? Oh, heavily. Very heavily. No problem at all.
Chlorothalonil not being available is seriously one of the it really chaps my ass. Do I get why it's not? Yes, I do, and I'm not here to argue one way or another, at least not on this show. But boy, you talk about all the, I don't know. When we're talking for people that are asking about fungicide resistance, which I've seen a couple of people get in there before, and there's multiple kind of facets of fungicide resistance. Number one is going to be your class of fungicide, right? There are certain classes of fungicides that are going to have a higher potential of resistance. Like Demay was talking about. Thiophanate methyl. Unfortunately, DMI classes, not all DMIs, but specifically thiophanate methyl has a very high potential for disease resistance, for developing resistance. Strobilurins, have a very high chance of those diseases developing resistance towards it. And what? At least what the data we have right now says that combining multiple sites of action, because you have to think how these fungicides are actually eliminating the disease, by attacking it at multiple sites, it will decrease the, if you're only attacking one site, that's only one mutation the disease has to make in order to become resistant to that fungicide. Versus if it attacks multiple sites at one time, i.e. chlorothalonil or Mancozeb, that is going to attack many sites. So in order for a disease to become resistant to that fungicide, it would have to make multiple mutations in order to become tolerant of it, right? So it being one of the lowest risk of developing resistance, it would just make such a great tank mix compatibility agent. And what science is saying is that typically the more sites you attack at one time, that would be the best way to manage disease resistance. So by combining multiple fungicides that attack only a single site, or adding something to the tank like chlorothalonil would be a great way to go after that. So it chaps my ass. We continue to have these conversations about disease resistance and what a great tank mix compatibility agent that would be to help fight that fight. But unfortunately, we just don't have it. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but
You lost your camera.
No,
I know.
no, you went exactly where we needed to go with it, because as far as things like gray leaf spot, we wouldn't even be talking about gray leaf spot if, in fact, you could legally apply 4 to 8 ounces per 1,000 square foot of wettable powder mancozeb. We wouldn't even be discussing gray leaf spot. Okay? Because that would be the non-issue, and I wouldn't be dancing around with Aliette if I had mancozeb, because mancozeb is excellent for preventing, but not dealing with active Pisium. It's a good preventative for it, but it's not intended for reactively treating Pisium. What you do use for reactively treating Pisium is unfortunately a fungicide that has extremely high risk of resistance, and that would be our Subdue Max or Mefenoxam EC, right?
Segue, yeah.
Yeah, or else the new one, Segue. I forgot what FRAC number that is, but Segue is also something that has an extremely high risk of resistance because it only affects the Pisium disease on one site and via one specific enzyme. So, you keep on using Segue and you're going to create Hulk Pisium.
Also not cheap at all.
And it's also expensive because like in the 1980s and the 1990s, guess how much a 4-pound bag of 4 wettable powder was, Ryan?
$20.
About that much. $20, $25, and so you used 4 ounces per 1,000 square foot, but it worked, and I could safely run that as a standalone fungicide, or I could tank mix that with something like Benlate or 3336 and get good coverage for dollar spot.
And I think that's what you've seen is with the chemistries, right? Is that you do have some more broad spectrum now with the SDHIs, but they're it's gotten very specific, which is a good thing, right? That we have these very niche products that go over that have great activity on very specific diseases. That being said, outside of the SDHIs, there is not in these new flavors of DMIs that are not plant growth regulating, right? Those are kind of the new things in golf that I think will matriculate down into lawn care and residential turf for the most part. But the things that I see that are challenges in the fungicide world are really threefold. One is the resistance issue, right, that we have with some of the commonly used products, right? The next thing is the fact that we're not seeing major manufacturers step up to the plate and try to get these things registered for sports fields or even lawn care, right? Because it's just too high of a bar to clear and they don't want to mess with it, right? They just want to keep it golf only. So like there are some fantastic contacts out there right now that will never see the light of day in lawn care because it's just not worth it, right? The ROI is not there for these companies. And so that unwillingness to try and bring to market newer chemistries that will have a more profound and wide ranging impact is concerning. And then last is just that, some of this stuff's going to start going away. Some of the older stuff is going to start going away. And, so it's kind of like getting pushed from two sides, right? So you're going to continue to lose stuff that is worthy and works and is in that right price range and price point, right, for folks to operate within. And so I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a really, really interesting next, not to get on the soapbox here, but next 10 to 15, maybe 20 years of how this all unfolds with fungicides, particularly in lawn care, in more widely used turf spaces. So again, parks and sports fields and things like that are going to get compressed from both sides, right? You're going to lose more stuff. You're not going to gain as much, and that attrition factor is going to be real to the point that do we accept, lesser, standards or lower standards of turf? I don't know. I mean, that's kind of where I think it might be headed, but it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I find it very interesting because we're basically getting really stretched, and I feel that stretch because in my area, fungicides are the difference between having to resod an area at $4 a square foot or not having to do it. So, by all means, I do need to control my dollar spot. I do need to control my large patch. I do need to control my Pythium. So it's just a matter of what the technology brings. And yeah, that's and unfortunately with this new technology also comes greater cost. However, there is something I don't miss about the older chemistries. Some of the older chemistries were actually very toxic and dangerous to we the applicators as well as to our customers.
Oh, there's
because,
no
for
doubt. I mean,
example,
yeah.
yeah,
You're on the right track there.
yeah, because for example, Daconil tells me if I have a leak in my gloves. Do you know how it tells me?
How's that?
Wherever Daconil gets on my skin, I get hives.
Oh man, I mixed up a lot of Daconil, dry flowable Daconil in my day with no mask, no gloves, like just being an idiot. But I've cut thousands of pounds worth of bags and just dumped them into the sprayer, melted them. Oh yeah,
chlorthalonil
dry
DF.
flowable.
Oh,
Yep.
dry flowable chlorthalonil. On the other hand, even with Mancozeb, I suspect that Mancozeb is probably what gave my grandmother leukemia. Because my
That's awful, right?
because my grandmother was an orchid collector. She was an orchid collector. And one of the things that the old lady would do is mix up some 4 in like a 5-gallon pail and then dunk the orchids, pot and all, into that, bath of Mancozeb.
Like Marie Curie dying from radiation exposure, right? God rest her soul.
Exactly. And so it's like by now all the new chemistries, if they have any potential for being carcinogens or toxins, they're probably not even going to get past EPA registration anymore.
So I got a question for Paul, and then there's a question in the chat I want to address about Summer Patch. So first, Paul, do you get, in your area, how much pushback, questions, inquiries, whatever, do you get on like that environmental side of, hey, what are you using? Is is that a big deal in your area? And like, I'm sure you get at least some of those questions. How do you answer those? How do you, as a
Virtually
business owner, lawn
none.
care operator?
This is a
Really? That's
huge
cool.
agricultural area, and they are used to. I mean, it's just nobody's ever asked me what I'm spraying, or
Don't hurt yourself.
I sometimes will have the question, is this safe for my dog or whatever? And I'm
Okay.
like,
Okay.
yeah, but I mean, never is there that environmental question. I know my buddy Chris lives in Asheville, and when all the things were going on with glyphosate, I know that he was saying that people were like, "You can't get near my house with glyphosate," and he bought that Miramichi fatty acid stuff to spray. But
it works.
here
That
we
stuff
have
does work. It's quick. It's quick, but it's not cheap.
he said that the animals love to come eat it.
Oh,
But
yuck.
I get zero of that. I'm going to be honest. I'm very fortunate in that respect, I guess.
No, that's good. That's good, because I think I see it like 50-50 of I don't care. I'm just worried about the outcome, and not so much like you can't come do this or you won't do this or anything like that, but more of just like more inquisitive of, hey, what is that stuff you're using? Like, people are just curious, right? And I can always talk to those people and have a good conversation of, hey, I'd love to tell you what it is and how safe it is, right? Because like,
Right.
we get into those things of, okay, like a Celiprin, right? Doesn't hurt bees. Yeah, it's more expensive, but you know what? Like, it doesn't even have a signal word on the label because it's so non-toxic, right? Its LD50 is 5,000 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. North of that, right? It's higher than that. It's incredibly safe. It's safer than anything else we could use. But then, it's funny, you go to some states like, Connecticut and others where even though it's that non-toxic, you can't use it. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. So I'm glad that you don't have to deal with that. I enjoy
I
answering
have
those
some
questions
customers that are very curious about what I'm spraying just because they want to learn. They want to know. I like that one
same.
guy, and his dad was a golf course superintendent, so he feels like he's kind of reaching back to his roots. But he always is. He'll text me after I've gone to his yard and just ask a bunch of questions about what I've done, and it's not to find out if I'm killing his family and his dog. It's just because he wants to learn what's doing what and why is that doing this and this kind of thing. He even got on the Amazon because he's got a little Bermuda patch in his front yard. His front yard's really small, but his backyard is kind of huge. And his fescue, his front yard is a small Bermuda yard. And I was talking to him about maybe growth regulating his Bermuda. And he got on the Amazons and found him some granular T-Nex. And he's like,
oh God,
what's this? How should I use it? I said,
don't get me started on that.
No.
I mean,
Paul, have you ever? This is a Discord thing. This is if you're on the Discord, thelawn.discord.com, one of my favorite one-liners on there. This is some people ask about granular fungicides, and things like that.
Granular PGR, granular PGR.
Yeah. This is my analogy, is that granular PGRs, granular fungicides are like sheepskin condoms. You're so preoccupied with the fact that, is it going to work? Because what you should be using, that's not it. You should be spraying something, right? That you're so preoccupied, you just really can't enjoy yourself. So, use the Durex, use the Trojans, right? Get out there and spray that stuff and do it the right way, right? We don't want to see anything bad happen.
Yeah, we want it to work.
That line.
His Bermuda's pretty tight right now. I mean, he's not real mowing it or anything, obviously, but he's cut. He's got a little Honda push mower. I told him to go as low as it would get it, and we put some sand on it and leveled it out. So I think he's in pretty decent shape right now. But maybe I need to follow up and spray him some PGR and show him the difference and get him hooked on those apps too.
Yeah,
I'm getting to where I don't have the time to follow up and and cover as many warm season PGRs in the heat of the summer as I would need to keep up with some things like that. But I'm always happy to get my customers really interested and involved in wanting the best lawn available, because it always ends up being an upsell for me, because I'm gonna give them something else. They're gonna always,
Absolutely.
and they're never gonna balk when I try to tell them, hey, let's try this Subvert XXX product or whatever, because they're into it.
Don't say XXX because he'll name something after that if you're not careful.
This the next thing.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the phosphite product.
Yeah, triple X hardcore phosphite.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
Don't
yeah, there's going to be a
Don't
cute
tempt
name
me.
associated. Yeah,
I know.
there's going to be a
Trust me, don't tempt him.
cute name. Yeah,
MFT.
cute name associated with. But I'm glad you don't get a lot of the pushback. As far as your applications go, here, believe it or not, Paul, I get it all the time. And when glyphosate hit the news, thankfully, Paul, I actually don't use a lot of glyphosate. But here's the flip side of that. I also have to tell people this is not glyphosate, and this will kill you. This shit will kill you. It's not Roundup, but it'll kill you. I'll leave it to your imagination as to what that actually is.
Yeah, some of those non-selectives that you can spray on and watch the weed die are equally as hard on a human as they are on the weed.
Oh yeah, because I'm going to show my age in that I'm familiar with something called paraquat.
Oh yeah, that's the one I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and because I'm familiar with paraquat, I'm also extremely familiar with diquat. In fact, diquat is my main non-selective in most applications, especially when I'm not dealing with a turf renovation type situation. My preference is actually for diquat.
Yeah, we use a bit of diquat here too, especially in wetter spots and things like that.
Yeah, but yeah, I tell people that glyphosate literally replaced a whole list of chemicals that are either now banned or extremely restricted in where and how they may be used. So, that's how I counter it. As I say, this Roundup is, thank goodness Roundup came around, because all the stuff I remember before Roundup had skull and crossbones on the bottles.
Well,
really? I'm
speaking
not
of
joking.
Roundup, I know. I'm the same age you are, I think. Are you about 49?
Yep, I'm 49 years old this year.
Me too. But yeah, I mean, I used to spray stuff on my dad's roses that, just coming home in flip-flops and shorts and, mixing it up in pump sprayers that would probably be triple outlawed today. But back to the glyphosate, we usually buy a tote of glyphosate here because I've got some clean out things that we do and some like right-of-way management type of things. But in January, my supplier called me and said, hey, you better get that tote. There's going to be a price increase. And I didn't get it. And then about a month later, he called me, hey, there's another price increase. You better get it. And there's been 3 price increases this year on glyphosate. And as of right now, there isn't any, and it's not the glyphosate. It's some of the inert ingredients in it. They can't get to mix the formulation because it comes from China, and some of the glyphosate actually comes from China too. But even the Roundup that's made, where is Roundup made? Somewhere Midwest, but they can't even
Missouri.
make it right now because they can't get the parts. And
they can't get the components.
I know one of my good friends is a regional manager for an agricultural chemical supply company, and everything is going to go up big time this year. They can't get what they need, and it's going to roll into turf here soon. So I mean, just brace yourself for price increases on everything. They used to be able to take a shipping container for $2,000. They could load anything they could stuff in that shipping container and get it over here. Now it's costing them between $12,000 and $15,000 to ship that same container over here that they could just 6 months ago for $2,000. So you do the math on that, and any of your imported chemicals are going up.
Well, I know that almost all of the active ingredients, if they're not made in Germany or the UK or Switzerland, they come from China. I mean, China just has taken over the chemical manufacturer market, to a large extent. And I even think about how there's some stuff that even comes from India, but that's another catastrophe because India has a special problem.
Bhopal.
And actually, they cannot seem to keep their chemical plants from either blowing up or catching on fire. I mean, Bhopal is the one that Bhopal is the one that killed like over 5,000 people overnight. But there's incidents that don't make the news, but their plant explodes and catches on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of a pain
too.
Yeah, because, for example, I have trouble finding Surfland.
Oh man, Surfland.
I love
paint some stuff orange. Paint some stuff orange. Like I'm talking bright orange, right?
Yeah, and after you paint it orange, you know what I like about it? Nothing grows there for the rest of the year. That's why I loved Surfland. Nothing grew there. It was dirt. And it was cheap too. It was relatively cheap. In fact, I think it's almost as effective as SureGuard, and Spectacle. But the thing is that with Surfland, you just can't get it because they can't seem to keep their factory in India that's making it now in Mumbai from catching fire. Every time they start it up again, it catches on fire.
I'm not in manufacturing, and Matt can clue me in, but fire bad, right? I mean, that's trying to get rid of the shed. I mean,
listen, everything I've done in manufacturing related to fire was a bad thing. And I fail to have ever encountered anything where an unplanned fire was ever a good thing. Even during biochar production, right? Pyrolysis is all about it's high temperature,
fire.
But it's not fire, right? It's all it's oxygen free, so there's no flame, right? Boy, you take something at 1,000 degrees Celsius and you inject some oxygen into that, and that kind of fire you don't want. You know what I mean? So No, I've got no good instances of fire and good manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
the last good unplanned fire, I think, was Towering Inferno. That was a great film. I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
That and the Poseidon Adventure. They're both.
Oh, yeah. Gene Hackman was great in that.
Yes.
You can't,
Oh,
yeah. It's classic. See, now we're all showing our age right here. There's people in this like, what the hell are these guys?
Yeah, I have
don't
no
know.
idea what you're talking about.
You're
Yeah.
not old.
Yeah.
There used
yet.
to be these things that came on TV, Matt, called like specials.
Yeah. You can watch the afternoon movie on TBS at like 2:05 in the afternoon if there wasn't a Braves game on, and you could catch a good movie, right? Wake up halfway through, not know what's going on,
like
pick back
prime
up.
time at night.
Listen,
Special.
I
Yeah,
just bring it
Monday-
up.
Mondays.
The
There's-
little
I'm sure
swirl
there's-
would come up to special, and then
There's got to be
we'd
other
watch
people
some
out
show.
there. How many people out there watch a movie and feel depressed afterwards because they've come to the realization they've lost 2 hours of their life they'll never get back?
Not often.
I think a lot of people.
Am
might be
I the
thinking
only
that
one
right
that
now.
goes through that? It doesn't matter if I watch Saving Private Ryan or whatever, and I can be moved to tears through Saving Private. I'll cry through the whole damn thing. But still, afterwards, the anxiety starts to creep in. It was like, oh shit, man, that's 150 minutes of my day that is just evaporated into thin air, and then that creeps into the back of my head, and I mean, it's like, it's not a good thing. It's not a good feeling. So that's what has always kept me away from TV and movies.
How many people are still watching this crap, J Pink? Can you tell?
23.
Quite a few. 23.
Yeah, last time I looked, it was well over 100. So they're very
we
curious
paid-
about
we
your
paid-
movie
23
reviews.
and 21
paid-
of them have
paid for all
passed
these
out already.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Yeah.
let's kill this and let's move to the show after the show. So that way we can kind of cut loose a little bit and have a little fun. My camera is dead. Both my batteries are dead. Therefore, this is why you have to look at the picture of me and my wife and my daughter there. But Paul, seriously, thank you for coming on and hanging out with us today. Let everybody
Man,
know
thanks for
real
having
quick,
me, man.
where
This
can they
was a great
find you?
time.
Where can people learn more about you, Paul the Outlaw?
I'm probably like in any post office. There's posters and shit, the crime page on the interwebs. I mean, obviously at the YouTube channel, Paul's Prime Cuts, and I've got an Instagram. I think. I mean, that's the same thing. I see J Pink rolls some stuff up there. Yeah, that thing right there. That's where you can find me. And if you're in my area and need turf treated, don't call. I'm busy.
It'd be $7,500 minimum.
Yeah, the prices are, man, these people have depressed me with all this stuff, and I know prices are going up, and time is irreplaceable. And we've just spent 3 hours of it, 4.5, whatever it seems like, but right here. But nah, I'm just kidding. But oh, look at that. That's some really tall ryegrass right there.
That's really good camera
that's
work.
perennial ryegrass that hasn't been mowed in ages. Anyway, yeah, just the YouTube channel, Paul's Prime Cuts. I'm getting all these texts right now. I guess people are telling me to cut it short or something.
I'm sure.
No.
I'm sure everybody's mad.
I didn't open them. I don't know what they're saying. They might be saying,
Well, hey.
great. I don't know.
Yeah, might
I
be,
just want to say
probably
thank
not.
you.
Well,
I just want to say thank you. It's good being
really
on here.
haven't had a chance to talk to you much, Ryan, or to get to know you, but I'm looking forward to it. Who's going to the GIE this year?
Oh,
what
boy.
did you not at?
Nah.
I'll do my best to be there. I'm loaded to the gills right now with fall projects, but if I can squeeze a couple of days out there, I will not, however, not be partaking in the peanut butter whiskey. So I will.
Yeah, well, I
think in Kentucky they sell 45 packs. I think they sell 45 packs of Keystone Light in Kentucky. I think that's state law. So.
Yeah, if I find you the
Keystone,
GIE, we'll get you a at least one of them 24-ounce cans of Keystones. That ought to at least cost $1.
Oh, at least $1 down there. So seriously, no, it was good getting to meet you. I can't wait for the after show with Paul's Prime Cuts, because let's be honest,
Paul's Prime Cuts is outie, man. I'm way past my limit.
we're gonna get rowdy, I think, because there is the good thing is, for everybody that's watching that wants to subscribe, join the channel, and get access to this via Dirty Deeds on the Discord. You'll get a private link in there. That's live for 10 minutes only. Then it disappears into the ether. It's gone, never to be seen again, as my friend Matt would say. But the amount of bullshit that keeps compounding into my inbox each week to be seen during the show, I'm really having to be selective on what kind of bullshit we see. So, Paul, if you want to see some really dumb stuff, please join us. Please join us. With that, Matthew, Ray, Paul, thank you all so much. It's been great. J-Pink, roll us out of here.